Hello, Caleb. I'm meeting with Caleb. Caleb's been a student of mine for the last going on 5 years, and we're talking about our last meeting. And Caleb, you live what part of Canada again?
In Halifax.
Halifax, and you're about a 4 hour. You're 4 hours ahead of me, so we're talking on Skype. And I listened to our meeting last week, and what you brought out about Gurdjieff's idea about the being of the individual, and I thought that was excellent. And also you talked about we talked about uh, the parable of Jesus, the story about Jesus and meeting Barnabas in the temple. And there Jesus was in the wash. There's a pool that is in the temple that people can come in and wash. Uh, and he was washing his feet. And then he saw Barnabas on the other side of the pool, and he called him over. How you explained what you saw or you understood about that parable, I thought was excellent also. And that's why, and there's a spirit of the work that I think that you must become more aware of, Caleb. I think you express it in the way you communicated it, the way you communicate. And you talk about the different desires in us, in yourself, but in all of us. There are competing desires, and there are desires that are familiar, and that we learn since infancy about what we want, things we desire, or things we react to. But I think that one of the main desires we all have as we develop and can become young adults and then adults is that a desire for a relationship. That is such a strong desire. Also, desire for a job, and a career, and desire for money and entertainment. These are good, natural, healthy desires. However, these desires become dominant, and some of them can become excessive. It could be sex. Individuals can spend anywhere from 3 to 10 hours on the internet, or having different kinds of relationships. Uh, I was watching a series called Sex in the City for young women. At that time, this was uh, produced about 25 years ago. And the setting is in New York, and four young women, successful uh, in their romantic relationships with men or the same sex, but mostly with men. And it was always trauma. And the four things that they all desired: um, fancy shoes, making money, finding a handsome, successful man, and restaurants, and fun, dancing and fun. And so it involved all the pleasures of the senses, which is absolutely wonderful. I think we all need that. But however, when that becomes a dominant factor in our lives, we have no room for anything else. And this is why the parable of Jesus saying that we cannot serve two masters, that either we hate the one and love the other, or embrace the one and reject the other. You cannot serve mammon and God at the same level, equal desires. And you see that. Do you understand why that is a true? What's your thoughts on that? You're nodding your head yes. And what do you see in that, Caleb?
I think that when he says you can't serve two masters, that that it's true that our mind, I think, ultimately has probably some desire that's the strongest for some object, and like what I, I'm not really sure, but I would imagine that most people have probably one object that they hold to be their chief desire. And there will be many other objects, but like say if someone is focused on a relationship or on fame or money, then yeah, that'll be the chief kind of object of their mind. Um, and and you can't really have two because they would contradict. They would be um, yeah, as he says, you would grow to love the one and despise the other. Um, yeah, and Gurdjieff says this like in the same way that you can't. What does he say that you can't sit between two chairs?
Yeah, yeah, you can't sit between two stools or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. I'm not really sure if that made sense. I haven't really thought about that specific concept, but
but that's right. I think you came out. What you're bringing out is very good. The idea that it's impossible, and you experienced this yourself. You were saying prior to our meeting last week that you hadn't met for 2 or 3 weeks, and you were caught up in life, basically. What was that like again? What was that like? That life that you experienced was you felt overwhelmed?
yeah. Well, there's lots of the circumstances of life for me, and it's really common. Just can fully occupy my mind, and there's lots of things that can can occupy the mind. Like I'm going to be moving soon, which takes a lot of um, planning and thinking about. And there's anxiety, there's emotions, fear, anxiety, getting things right. Um, Also, with my work, I was unemployed for a while, so um, anxiety about money and my job, job security, um, and lots of other things like relationships with my friends and others, coworkers and stuff like that can occupy the mind to where there's no. It's what Spinoza says that the aspects of life can occupy the mind to such an extent that it has no power to reflect on any different good, is how he puts it.
Yes. And so, and this is why it's so difficult for individuals to do this work. If they have a prior goal of, say, being married, having children, or having a successful career, that again is good. However, the work of Spinoza and the work that I am endeavoring to help communicate to those who are interested, because Spinoza itself, uh, very few individuals can open the book and start reading it and understand it. Most individuals read Spinoza with the idea if I can read it through the whole book, I can say I read it. But I might ask the individual, do you understand it? Well, I think I do. Well, what does Spinoza mean about the method of an awakening the intelligence? Would he say something about that? Or what does he say about that the mind, God constitutes the essence of the mind? This is on Proposition 1, Part 3 of the Ethics, that God constitutes the essence of the mind. Could you explain what he means by that? No. The intellectuals cannot, there must be an emotion. And what is that emotion? I've talked about before. To understand Spinoza, there must be what, Caleb?
To understand Spinoza, there has to be desire and a love for understanding also.
Excellent. There must be love and the desire and love of our understanding. There must be desire and a love of our understanding. There's a taste of our understanding. And that's why when I listened to our meeting last week, I thought, wow, I was affected by how you were explaining yourself. And that's why I was wondering how you picked it up, because Caleb, you must begin to see your clarity. You must begin to see it and recognize your clarity and love it, because that is the true spirit of the work. The spirit of the work is to love our understanding, the effort to understand. Because then you, as you begin to understand that more, you begin to see the truth of what Spinoza says about coming to this new character. And we remember that character, what he says. What is that character, Caleb?
Yeah, he calls it the knowledge of the union existing between our mind and the whole of nature.
Yes, coming to the knowledge of the union existing between the mind and the whole of nature. You said it very good. However, there's coming and existing, coming to the knowledge. What is that knowledge? What would you say that knowledge is?
Yeah, that knowledge, it's a true knowledge, and it doesn't relate to knowledge of mathematics or knowledge of science. It's not information. It's the idea is that our being is built on ideas, ideas about who we are, what is our place in the world and the universe. Everyone has these ideas, and Spinoza's proposition is that a lot of those ideas are false, and that we think of ourselves as independent operators having free will. Our desires are our choosing. And he says that this is not the case and that we did not create ourselves. We don't exist by our own power. We exist by the power of God. And following from that, meaning that we are instruments basically of God. And, and so that means that we follow laws, and that that our minds, though they're a part of God and follow from His power, we do not understand ourselves, and we don't understand the world. We have a fragmented understanding. So what Spinoza, his endeavor is to understand. He wants to understand God and know how He plays a part in the nature of God.
Well, what's prior to understanding God?
Yeah, to understand God for us, the way to come to that knowledge is to understand ourselves.
Yes. And what is so? Is this something that you feel that you've acquired working with me?
I have improved. I would say that I'm not even close to being on where I'd like to be in that kind of understanding. Um, but I've certainly improved, and I want to continue improving.
So by you feel that working with me, that is that why you continue working with me? Because you want to improve your understanding of your nature?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what is there to understand? What when you say understand your nature, what is there to understand?
So to understand our nature, what does it mean? It means that all of our thoughts and emotions, actions, um, follow from laws that we are right now ignorant of. And understanding that all of our desires, yeah, follow from cause and effect, um, and that our essence, as Spinoza describes it, is desire, and um, we have a certain amount of power also of affecting the world around us and of thinking, a power of thinking. Um, that follows from God. So I'm kind of getting confused now, but
I'm going to help you right now. I think we'll jump in right now. Um, and then I think this is where you need, say, more. clarification because you've been in it for the last, say, almost 5 years. To know thyself, again, you're right. We must, to know God, we can't know God unless we know ourselves. And what is it to know ourselves? How do we go about knowing ourselves? And this is the work that we do. And this is what you need to come to clarity about, Caleb, is to know thyself. And Socrates talked about the highest, greatest knowledge is to know thyself. Socrates, Aristotle, Plato talk about these ideas about human nature, which is totally different from the sciences, physics, mathematics, becoming a doctor, becoming an attorney. All that is information, yes, how to do your craft well and exist in life. But the spirit of man, we must begin to look inside ourselves. And how do we do that? By the simple process of learning how to look at ourselves without judgment in every situation you are in. And that's why, Caleb, I think you have to put in more effort in this area to acknowledge this dynamic process of what you've experienced. Because you cannot communicate the way you did regarding quoting or, say, expanding on Gurdjieff's ideas and also the way you spoke about Jesus' concept about his communication with Barbarus. The idea of the work and the method that I work and understand through Spinoza and Gurdjieff is to take a simple situation in life that affects us. And in the beginning, you are affected at the job. For instance, someone who's doing something, you're working in the kitchen, you're working in a very excellent restaurant in where you live, high-end restaurant. But prior to that, you find, well, even in that environment or other kitchen environments, there is a dynamic process. Yes, there's the cooking, the preparation, and delivery, and the delivery of the food, and getting accolades for that whole process. But in the kitchen itself, if there's anywhere from 5 to 30 or 40 individuals, there's a dynamic interaction. And that dynamic interaction affects us. And that affects, and how are we affected? You must be aware of how you are affected. If an individual you see is younger, as you brought about a year ago, we'll call him Rick. Rick is younger, a couple years younger, and he's a sous chef. And you, at that time, say a year ago, was someone who preps. And you found that you like to be a sous chef. This now may not be exactly, but this is what happened. But you saw Rick as being younger and also a little bit more skilled. And you've been in this work, in this kitchen, in the area of field of cooking and the kitchen experience for about, say, almost 10 years. And Rick has been in it for, say, 4 years. He's already a sous chef. And what do you experience? Envy. Envy. We must understand what we are experiencing. I remember when I was, before I started this work many years ago, about 20, 30 years ago, I was in a hair salon. I was a hairstylist for about 25 years. And as I was working, I was looking at this other stylist. His name is John. And he had a clientele, a waiting list of 2 weeks. And he had about 12 to 15 people a day. And I sometimes would have anywhere from 5 to 6. And I was in so much envy of him. I didn't understand it until later. I began to really look at myself. Now I've been doing this work a long time. But envy is a necessary operation that works in us, or an expression. What is envy? We see someone do something better than us or have a better position than ourselves, that we wish we were there. I wish I had what John had, the money and all the people, the waiting list, and everyone that came to John loved him and praised him. I wanted praise, and I wanted love, and I wanted money. I had that to a certain degree, but not at the level of John. So you, in the kitchen, see Rick, and Rick is making all kinds of decisions. And you'll find yourself in envy. And what is the definition of envy? If we look it up in, let's see, I think it's 184, about there. No, it's not there at all. It's that, oh, it's on page 179. Envy is hatred. Would you go ahead and read that on 178, middle of the page?
Yeah. Envy is hatred, insofar as it induces a man to be pained by another's good fortune and to rejoice in another's evil fortune.
Stop right there, please. Look at that. Envy is hatred, insofar as it induces a man to be pained by another's good fortune. So I'm in pain because of John's success. You're in pain because of Rick's success. Yeah, that's very simple. So the more we begin to see it, write it down, and this is why a journal is so important. To journal, to write, and to experience this envy, to feel it, to surrender to it, to know it. Spinoza says the way we can come to freedom is to begin to see the emotion itself, disconnected with the object. And that is difficult to do. Would you say that's correct?
It's difficult, and it's quite a process.
Yes. But the more you do it, because I still go into anger at times. I'll go in this building, as you know, I mentioned there's 13 floors. There are 2 elevators. There's about 125 seniors over 55. And some of these seniors don't wear a face mask. And I'm very adamant about wearing a face mask. When I see someone, I said, "Where's your mask?" And I said, "Don't bother me. I don't care. I don't believe it." And I said, "Well, I won't ride in with you." And I can't. So it's inconvenient to me, but I go into pain. And what is the pain? Why do we feel pain? Why would I feel pain?
There's pain there because, well, we have the desire to, it's for safety. Well, the first thing is safety, desire to be safe with the virus going around, and others not following the rules really hinders that desire. And then there could also be, that's a simple pain where, it might not bring us into a passion, but we could also have the pain of we desire for others to think like we do and to have influence over others. And when we see that others disagree with our way of life and with our beliefs, then can feel an intense hatred.
Yes. So we go from that we want something, desire. I want everybody to wear a mask because I want the safety. I want to protect myself from the virus. 2, I want to influence them. But however, so if my desire is not met, we feel pain. Is that right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
automatically.
Automatically. And if we feel pain, automatically we go towards what?
If we see that someone else is the cause, then we'll feel hatred for them.
Hatred. And then from hatred, we go into what's the next emotion?
Anger.
Anger. So there's 4 things that happen. We want something, that desire is not met, we go into pain. Pain now is, we want to get away from pain. You are the cause of my pain. So hate is a belief. Well, hate is pain accompanied by the idea of someone as a cause. And then from hate, we go into anger. Anger is desire, whereby through hatred, we are induced to remove or destroy, or we might just walk away from the object of our hate. Because if we hate confrontation, we might not say anything. We might just walk away or run away. But these, once we begin to see how these emotions operate in us, and we must surrender. For instance, if we look at anger, again, anger is desire to remove the pain, basically, any way possible. Because we don't like to feel pain. But what is hate? So hate is a belief or say an idea that someone is the cause of it. But Spinoza says if we believe someone's the cause of it, that's where we're stuck. We'll never free ourselves. Our pain is our own suffering. What is the pain? Is our own confusion. And what is the confusion? I believe in free will. I believe this person should act differently. I believe this person should comply to what is the new norm in our building. The science says everybody should wear masks. All right, so I'm in pain. So if I begin to look at my pain, what is my pain? If I look at pain as a feeling of impotence and powerlessness, a feeling of helplessness, and I don't know what to do. If we are in that state and surrender to the feelings, you must begin, surrender to the feelings of this and write our feelings down and to be with it and not escape, not run, but to be with it. That stimulates the mind, the active, awake state of the mind that wants to wake up to the reality of the present. When we believe in free will and focus on the other as a cause, and we stay in the hate, we stay in our hate and anger, and we may never talk to the individual again. We might report them, and we're constantly thinking about them all day long, about what the hell how terrible they are, how stupid they are. And we can stay in that mode. However, if we begin to, so wait a minute, I see this pain is my pain. And if I begin to look at that pain, there's an inner process, and there's an awakened process, and that awakened process is the beginning of self-healing. Self-healing is our understanding. The body itself, if you broke your leg in a bicycle accident, you don't focus on the bike or the thing that caused the accident. You focus on your leg. You want to go to the hospital, get it fixed, and your body, you surrender to the reality. You automatically are surrendered to the reality that you cannot get up and walk. You surrender to the reality that you surrender to the reality that you need help, and then surrender to the reality that you trust your body, that your body will heal itself. That kind of surrender, we must surrender to our nature. You don't have to think about how well you don't have to think about what if well sorry, I lost my thoughts there, because we think if we begin to learn how to think, we don't have to think about the other individual anymore, the cause of pain. But as we begin to look at ourselves and see that, because in reality, I don't know what to do in that situation. And as that organization, I cannot change that individual. I'm powerless to change the individual. The only thing I could do is change how I perceive. And how I perceive it, I realize the individual has free will. If the individual operates from the law of necessity, I too do not have free will, and I operate from the law of necessity. So, well, we've been over 30 minutes. Do you have any thoughts or questions about we're going to stop this recording, and I'm going to continue talking after the recording, but what do you want to add?
I don't have anything to add. And actually, I'm starting to lose your audio. Yeah, I couldn't hear you for just the last bit. It's breaking up.
Okay, that's going to happen. All right, so what I'm going to do is disconnect us, and I continue to stay on though, and hopefully others can understand what we are doing. There are books that we work with. This is a book of Spinoza's Ethics, and this is the book of In Search of the Miraculous, and this is my teacher's book that we use on a regular basis to help us understand how to awaken ourselves, become conscious of our being, and how to improve our being. Because there's a chapter in here that I'd ask you to read on chapter 25. It says this. No, no, I'm sorry, the chapter 26. On page 52, the intellect in solving problems. It says, excellent, this is my teacher's book. The mind has many levels. Would you go ahead and read that?
Yeah. The mind has many levels, ranging from very superficial to very deep. When our mind operates at a superficial level, the quality of our life is superficial. We live mainly from our senses and instincts. Our contact with others is also very superficial, and we're guided almost entirely by our emotions. We are insensitive to the deeper hunger of our being and are inwardly unfulfilled. We buffer our feelings of not being internally fulfilled. We fill our time with superficial activities, and we see life in terms of symbols and symptoms. Our desires are symbols of what we need inwardly, and we deal with the symptoms of our problems. Our minds are flabby because they are not exercised. Our motivation is to avoid pain, and our pleasures are merely offsets to our pain. To gain truer fulfillment, we must exercise our intelligence, our mind. The disappointments, problems, and challenges in life are the exercise equipment that offer us the opportunity to deepen our thinking.
Stop there for a moment, please. I think that's excellent. And there's more to this chapter, this poem. And it's my teacher wrote this book. He worked with others, all of us students, and he was able to. What he did was take the problems that we were experiencing and brought his explain what was going on and how to come to say inner fulfillment. It's such a dynamic book, and I highly recommend it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say goodbye for now on the recording. Now, hang on, Caleb.